Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to DCTV, where I am your host, Drew Collins, bringing you all sports-related news in the greater Cincinnati area. If you're new around here, make sure to stick around by supporting. Now hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and comment future video ideas down below. Now let's get into today's video. Last year, the Cincinnati Bengals ranked as the 25th best defense in the entire NFL. You know, it was a tough season and only winning the least amount of games in the entire league. You're expected to have a bad defense, but 25, I think that's going to, shock some people. And then all the new acquisitions they added this year, it's going to be really exciting to watch. So in today's video, I'm going to explain why I think the Bengals defense will shock a lot of people next year. And we're going to see a lot of improvements that, a lot of people won't expect. And the Bengals have done acquisitions in free agency, in the draft, and a lot of these young players are getting older and they're starting to learn and become better players. So in today's video, I'm going to explain why I believe that. First off, we're going to start with defensive tackle DJ Reader from the Houston Texans, a 4 years, $53 million contract. He's not a sack machine. He's not going to fill the stats. He's not going to seem so crazy on paper, but man, the stuff he does on the field is really a game changer. He stuffs up the middle of the field, so helps the running game, and he just helps take one or most of the time two linemen up so the ends can focus on a one-on-one battle to get to the quarterback. He's not a guy where you're going to look at the stats and be like, wow, man, he's going to tear him up, but he's a guy that goes out there and plays, competes, and helps his teammates around them because of the player he is. I believe he was in the Pro Bowl last year. I think he was an alternative. So, he has some few years under the belt. You look at this defense, and you'd probably consider him one of the veterans because his defense is so young. I really like this pickup. It's a decent contract, 4 years length, not that much money. 53, it's a decent amount thrown out for the Bengals at least. And I think it's really going to show. I think this was a great pickup. And, Carlos Dunlap, you're going to have him and Geno Atkins up the middle. And then the ends, Sam Hubbard. It's going to be really interesting because those ends are going to have one-on-one battles most of the time now. And they should get to the quarterback a lot this season. Next up, we have Trey Waynes, cornerback out of the Minnesota Fighting Vikings, who signed a 3-year, $42 million contract. And this was a great pickup. The secondary, in my opinion, definitely was lackadaisical last year and gave up a lot of big plays. I think most of the time you turn into a Bengals game, it's a really close game, and at the end of the game, they just give up one huge pass, and it just takes the air out of everybody, and, the Bengals felt inflated from then and there. And I feel like that's how most of the games were, but Trey Waynes helps that. Trey Waynes does not give up a lot of big plays. He's actually one of the best players in the league to not give up big plays. As a Vikings fan, I watched a lot of Vikings games last year, and he definitely impressed. When I saw him leave, it sucks for the Vikings, but it's a big plus for the Bengals. I think he's really underrated, and like I said, even though he's not that old, he's going to be one of these veteran-type players with how young this defense is. Now, you're also going to pair him with Viking McKenzie Alexander, another cornerback that they got for loose change, which I didn't understand. They got him for so cheap, and I'm telling you, it's going to be the steal of the century. He's not a game-changing player, but man, he stays in there, he makes smart plays and doesn't give up big plays. And these two guys, I think, are going to come in, fill roles. I think, it's another J. Kirkpatrick plus guy that makes a little less mistakes as him. So it definitely adds depth, and, I definitely like this move. The McKenzie Alexander deal was really cheap, and he's 27 years old, so he's not in his 30s. So, I would set him as a veteran. And I just think this is going to help him up a lot with the depth. I also want to put out there with these two corners, they are also pretty good at stopping the run for corners. If you ever watch the Vikings, their defense, their corners have to be good at stopping the ball. And they usually are if they ever make it to the outside past the monster Danielle Hunter. But, yeah, they're definitely good tacklers. Definitely better than J. Kirkpatrick. I know a lot of people hated that he could not tackle in his entire career. I've had a lot of personal, Bengals fans that are hardcore, and they're like, man, if there's one thing I could change that guy, it'd be his tackling. So I think there was an improvement there as well. Moving on to my favorite transaction of free agency, Vaughn Bell, safety from the Saints. Man, a lot of these players, they're not huge game-changing players, but Vaughn Bell is that. This guy is a beast. He's a monster. And wow, when I saw the Bengals pick up this guy, I was like, okay, they're in. They haven't done it in my whole, since I've been watching the Bengals and I can remember watching football. They've never been in like this, but they're in now. And you can tell they're building around Joe Burrow. If you want to see more on Joe Burrow, link in the description. I have about 5 videos on him already. But anyways, they're finally going in and are building towards the future, and honestly towards now, at least working on it. And Vaughn Bell is a huge move. It was a 3-year, $18 million deal, which I think is pretty legit. I think that's decently paid. The safety market is kind of awkward right now with all these players wanting to get paid more than a lot of these veterans are getting paid. So I thought 3 years, 18 mil was like a great deal. He's a leader and a star talent. I think the players that had captain badges on their jersey last year, I don't really think they are captains at heart. No disrespect, but I think Vaughn Bell will definitely be wearing one. Sean Alexander and these guys, I love them. They're great players, but I just don't think the talent is there. Maybe they're, the leadership role or the communication was there, but I don't really think the talent is quite there to be a captain, at least on most top 10 teams in the NFL. So I think there will be some changes there, and I would like to see some changes, honestly. But I think that's where he steps in. He's a great leader. He makes big plays. I think a big reason for the Bengals last year, the defense, they just really never made big plays. And that kind of sucked because, when they could have had an interception or a turnover or a fumble or anything early on in the drive, that really never happened. So the drives were long, so they stayed on the field. They were exhausted, tired, didn't have depth, and that's why teams just ran it up on them a lot of the games. And I think, a player like this is going to help Joe Burrow and the offense even more because of it. So moving on to what I believe need to be the most addressed in the offseason, at least on this defense, was the linebacking crew. I mean, the linebacking crew, they have some really good players, but I don't really believe there's a lot of talent there. Like, at least I'm going off of top 10 talent. Obviously, all these players are talented in different ways, and they are talented because they're in the NFL, but I'm talking about like a top 10 team getting to the playoffs type of talent. And I really believe the linebacking crew really needed to be addressed. There wasn't that one linebacker that steps up and gets all those tackles. And they didn't draft that in basically free agency because there wasn't a strong free agency for linebackers, but that's what the NFL draft was for. They obviously got Joe Burrow at the first pick, and somehow T. Higgins fell. And then after that was boom, 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 all defensive players basically. And they really addressed defensive linemen. We start with the third-round pick, Logan Wilson. The kid's an all-around monster. I watched some highlights on him, and if you haven't, please do. The kid is a homing missile when it comes to tackling, and I think he's probably going to start, if not get a lot of playing time right away. And that's what I love about all these defensive picks here, is maybe not all these players are going to start, but I guarantee they're going to get a good amount of time on the field this year because of the depth the Bengals really needed to address. And so they did that in the NFL draft by getting players that are going to play and, see the field. And Logan Wilson could definitely be a day one starter, if not getting a lot of play time. Then you go to the fourth rounder, Keem Davis-Gathers, another linebacker. So they're going linebacker heavy. He plays a little bit of different style. I'm pretty sure he's a little bit of a bigger boy. Still can lay the wood, hit. I'm pretty sure he's more of a turnover guy, go up the gap and blitz. I have to do a little bit more research on him. By the way, if you want to see all the draft prospects, what I rated them and kind of who they are, I'll leave a link in a below or click up in one of these corners right here. And I did a whole video of a draft recap of my live reaction, rated everything, and just told you a little bit about the players. Next, you have fifth-round pick Khalid Kareem. Now, he is actually a defensive end, which I thought was an interesting move because Carlos Dunlap and all these guys are getting older, and they can learn from these guys, as well as we're talking about depth here. And so, obviously, he won't start, but he could definitely see playing time, especially when the Bengals last year was hard to get off the field. Carlos Dunlap won't have to play 3 downs. He could be a 1 or 2 down, later in the game, and these guys can come in and step up. Really liked it. To tell you a little bit about him, he is that modern-day defensive end build. The Danielle Hunters, all these players that are built long, lengthy, fast, and quick, but can, lay the wood and get around the tackle. That's kind of his build. So I obviously like watching them, so I thought it was a great pick. And then you go to the 7th round, another linebacker, this time Marcus Bailey out of Purdue, I believe. I really like this guy. I believe the only reason he's went down to the 7th was because of his previous injuries in college. Like I said, I don't remember, it was a while ago when I did the topic of the video for the draft, but I'm pretty sure that's why. But the talent is there. It's just if he can stay healthy, man, this guy is another monster machine when it comes to tackling. So, and I think that's what the Bengals need to address. So they have a really, really young core here on the defense that has, you know, a bunch of veterans and talent to look up to and learn from. So I think it's going to be really interesting. So with all that said and done, let me know in the comment section below what you guys think of the NFL draft, all these prospects, and about the Bengals defense. How good do you think the Bengals defense will be? Do you think it'll be a top 20, top 15, top 10? I mean, they were top 25 last year, and they were the worst team in the league. So how do you think they'll do this year? I don't really have a guess, but I would say at least top 15, you know, top tier, top mid-tier in the league this year. The Bengals have always had a good defense under Marvin Lewis. Offense, we can say otherwise, but they've always had the defense. But with that defense, they had players to lead and players who go out there with that grit. And I believe over the past few years, the Bengals have lost that grit. And I feel with a lot of accusations they've gotten this offseason, that grit will come back. So if you enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like, hit that subscribe button, road to 1K. Make sure you comment a video idea down below. And make sure to stay true. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Yeah, I think about you all day, and at night I watch the stars. I know love is not a game, but I can't control what my heart. I fucked up so many times, I know you thinking